Welcome everyone to Women Together. My name is Antoinette and we are back together again. So we can just say hello in the chat and maybe share where you're coming from. Often we share a little bit of the weather because it has been changing, and also recently being here in New York and feeling the smoke from the West Coast. Just a reminder that we are all connected through being on this shared planet. So just connecting into place and connecting to where you are today. Wonderful. So I see we're coming from Ellicott City, Maryland, Owatonna, Minnesota? I'm making that up. East Bay in California, Boston, San Francisco, Brooklyn, the San Francisco Bay Area, Lake Oswego, Oregon, Toasty, Marsha, I hope everyone's okay. Los Angeles in Germany, the Black Forest. Welcome everyone. And we'll just let people land as you arrive, just kind of finding your moment. This is our little hour together. We've had week after week. Thanks, Mary Kay. I don't know why MN just kind of didn't register for me today. West Palm Beach, Florida, beautiful suburban Philadelphia. Thanks. It's good to see everybody. It's just, I love doing this little practice in the chat and in the gallery. If you put your Zoom on gallery view, I like to just scroll through the gallery and just for a moment, taking in beautiful faces we have here, many of whom we've been able to connect with each other week after week. And if you just focus for a moment on a few of the images that are here and just do a little hello. Maybe we just each welcome each other. Just take in, I love how one of my teachers, Thomas Hubel, says, act as if you have eyes all across your whole body and just take in with all of those eyes, these few people, just holding a little welcome. I see some waves, just a hello and a welcome, just bringing that warmth to the space, to each other. And just knowing, even if we're not on video, that we're all coming in here together. And just a reminder for those of you who may be new, a warm welcome to you as well. We have been gathering week after week, month after month, year after year at this point, to just connect with each other and to connect with ourselves. This program has been started by Eileen Fisher and her foundation. And Eileen is a clothing designer. She created clothing to allow us to feel comfortable and confident in our bodies and in ourselves. And these practices of Women Together have allowed us to go deeper into our connection with ourselves and just a bit beyond the clothes. So there are occasional moments where some of us talk about clothes and shoes and things like that, but more often we are doing some meditation practice and connection to ourselves and each other. So we do a little bit of that practice, and then we go into breakout rooms and connect with each other. I love this. Mary Kay said, love, loss, and what I wore. This year, that feels like the themes. But yeah, it's just been a wonderful way for us to connect with each other and to connect with ourselves. Just take a moment out of the day or out of the week. And what we do is tiny practices. So I have a little singing bowl. And at the beginning of each session, I invite us in to just connect with ourselves and our place by tuning in to the sound of the bell, the sound of the singing bowl, and the sound of the breath. And wherever you are, whatever sounds might be there, just taking them in, but not getting too attached to any one sound. Just letting them come, letting them go, just as the breath comes in and comes out. And just being here for a moment. So if you can exhale everything out, breathe in through the nose, inhale, fill the belly, fill the chest and the collarbones. Just feeling the breath moving in and out, that one tiny practice that happens all day, every day. And I'll ring the sound of the bell. And if you'd like to lower your gaze or close your eyes, connect your feet to the earth, connect your head to the sky, just feel that connection of being human. I'll ring the sound of the bell to bring us into a moment of stillness, and I'll ring the sound of the bell to bring us back. You can return your gaze to the screen, connecting to each other, connecting back in. Today's topic is about exploring power, and I'll share a little bit from my own experience. I've run leadership programs for women, young people, all types of people over the last more than a decade. And I've thought a lot about power. So I'll share some of my thoughts and invite in some of your thoughts and some reflection and meditation. And then we will turn to each other because I think that is where we get so much of being witnessed, being heard, and really get to practice some of what we're talking about. So, but before we do all of that, maybe just a little note in the chat of what brought you here today. When you just tuned in with that moment of stillness, what's coming up for you? What really brought you here today? Not just the reminder email or whatever it may have been, but what's bringing you into to Women Together today? And just feel free to type directly in the chat, and I will read a few out in Zoom or on YouTube. And just a hello from Kathy in Chelsea, Quebec. Happy to join with everyone today. Commitment to mindfulness and connection with powerful women from Kathleen. My need for connection and peace from Patricia. I need to settle myself going in too many directions. Jerry, I hear that. Lisa, settles my monkey brain. Just feeling like I need to be connected to like-minded women. Welcome. Rachel, peace, passion, and power. Mary Kay, I lost my online yoga class and I miss my friends. Here you all are. Yes, here we are. Marlene, curiosity about the topic. Deborah, desire for connection with like-minded women. Anna, to reconnect. I've been on my own, driven to complete my project, and I'm celebrating this new start. Congratulations. Kathleen, to regain my focus on community. Diane, interested in how women interact with power. Lisa, trying to relax my body from all the stress. My back went out this morning. I'm sitting on a heating pad. Relax. Yes, Lisa. Sending you a breath. Beautiful. I love these sessions, and I'm not able to often attend as a teacher, moving from Brooklyn to Austin next week. Good luck with your move, Patricia. Oh, so many good ones. I live alone and love the connection with other women, from Jean. Haven't seen you in a while, missed you. Beautiful. So wonderful. Curiosity about how women define power. We tend to emulate men. We also end up competing with each other. Yes, Francis and Grace Ann, to relate this topic to the masculine and feminine. Amazing. We're all on the same page. It's good to just check in about where we are as a community, and, just holding all of the different pieces. So, Barbara said, not sure what power means to me anymore. I often feel powerless to do anything. So over the last, as I mentioned, well over 10 years, I've been working with running leadership programs. And so that is where my reference for power comes from. And thinking about, what does power mean to me? And what are the different lenses on power? And when I looked at the Eileen Fisher system, the Eileen Fisher company, how Eileen Fisher interacts with other people, herself as a woman, but also as the leadership of the company, and how the interaction with supply chain communities goes, it felt like a different form of power. And, Grace Ann, you mentioned this topic of masculine and feminine, relating, how do we relate power to that? And because it was 80 something percent women, I really thought, oh, this is just the women's way of doing things. And I still wonder how much of that is true. And I wonder how much of that is actually part of how we're socialized as women, to be able to operate in this way. So as I speak, I wonder how much is already coming up for each of us about these topics and thoughts, depending on our different life experiences. And the other piece of it is that there's different elements as we look at feminine power. There are different ways of looking at, and all types of power, there are different ways of looking at that power. So some of my frame comes from different professors, but Srilata Batliwala, she works with an organization called Kriya in India, and also with the Rutgers Center on Women's Leadership. And she really outlines different realms of power, and pulls together a lot of different research. And so I thought I'd just share a few of these kinds of more academic ways of thinking about power, and then bring that back into our own sense of internal power and our own sense of inner power. Because I think often we talk a lot about how we are, in this space, we talk a lot about inner power, and we kind of come to that. And then we forget, and I think Francis reminds us regularly about how these external forces of power, we don't live in a vacuum from those as well. And so a lot of our inner power, inner dimensions of power, can be shaped by these external spaces as well. So in various ways of thinking about this, there are three realms of power. So there's the public, which is kind of where it's visible. So in larger institutions, government, police, we might see, there's a lot of different public power, organizations, etc. And then there's private power, which is somewhat less talked about, but it's in families or ethnic groups, friendships, marriage, the places where we have power with others, or in connection with others, but it's more private. It's not held in the public life. And then there's intimate power. So that's power or powerlessness that we feel within ourselves. Sometimes that's self-confidence, self-esteem, power over our own bodies. Sorry, my dog Simba seems to be feeling a bit powerless right now, as I've tried to keep him out of our session, but he's making his voice heard. So there's an intimate power, which is really within ourselves. And these private and intimate spaces of power are often not ones that we talk about out in the public sphere. You know, it's not something that we necessarily, oftentimes people will say, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And those closed doors could be your own home, but it could also be inside yourself. And that leads to these two types of intrinsic and extrinsic power. So intrinsic power is the personality, the capability, the knowledge that we carry, our own circumstances, and all of the things that we use to define the self. And then there's extrinsic power. That's power that comes from outside. So it might be assigned to me, or it's positional power, or it's earned power. So it might be that someone bestowed a certain role, it gave me that power. It might be that somebody, that I gained that experience. So then I got a new position, and then I had positional power over other people, or, resources, or earned power, which could be built on some of this internal experience. So maybe I've grown internally, and then I've earned this power externally as well. And the last thing I'll share about just how we're thinking about power is these different expressions of power. So the way that we express power is different sometimes than how we might think about power or feel power. So an expression of power can be power to. So that's when I bring my skills, my experience, my insight, I bring that power to something. So let's say I join a local community organization, or I bring my power to that, or an organization might bring their power to lobby for something. Power over, which many of us have a lot of experience with or feel or have had, it really derives from a positional or assigned authority. So it's really power over is having control over other people, over resources, and it can slip often into domination. Power with is when we kind of link arms. So Gloria Steinem talks about we are linked, not ranked. So the ranked would be power over, and power with would be when we consider ourselves more linked to each other, and we are really enabling all of those who are engaged, developing mutual support networks. I don't know why you're crying. Sorry, Simba's just. Power within is the capacity to regenerate oneself and one's strategies in response to challenges. So power within is really that internal power. So do I have the ability to be resilient? We've talked a lot about resilience in this group. But when we really talk a lot about the power within, and we'll come back to this, but this is one that I think, this is really about my own capacity to respond. And the other one, the final one that we don't talk about almost ever, is power under. And I really appreciate this. There's a full article by Stephen Weinman on this, but it's an internalized powerlessness. And I love this quote. In fact, domination and powerlessness are two sides of the same coin and are interrelated not only between individuals, but also within individuals. And I'll read it again. In fact, domination and powerlessness are two sides of the same coin and are interrelated not only between individuals, but also within. And I think this internalized powerlessness, we may have experienced something in our own lives where we feel or have felt powerless. And then that translates, that feeling of powerlessness, I take that with me. So if I had an experience of trauma or assault, or even just feeling powerless with my parents or authority figures, and I go into an organization and I bring this kind of meek, or, okay, I don't really have power. I have power under, I do both things. I both express this power under, this powerlessness. This is who I am. It becomes who I am. But it also, when I do get positional power, the only way that I know how to express power becomes power over. because that's the only way that I've experienced it, and it's what's within me. And I think this is I bring this up because I think it's a really important point for us to at least acknowledge that it's there. I'm going to move my screen and do one quick thing so that Simba stops crying. Sorry. But there we go. But this experience of powerlessness is what we then, yeah, I'll put the name in the article, the name of the articles into our chat. And I'll also put this up on the Connect site too, or the Women Together community site. So the fact of powerlessness is that if we don't acknowledge it, it's sort of running in shadow all the time. And what I mean by running in shadow, it's sort of constantly there, this internalized piece of ourselves, even if we say, oh, we kind of do this surface level, I have power, I'm confident, I'm ready. If we have this underlying experience of power under this internalized powerlessness, then we're constantly playing out that same pattern. So by acknowledging it and recognizing that that's there, maybe not all the time, but that's a part of what's going on, we can start to address it. So I just bring that little analysis. And sometimes we can look at this, when we're in a situation, it's not just one thing. It's not just power over. You need both of those things to interact. And I think, we need, in order to have power with, we need to also have power within. So I will come back to the power within piece, but I really just wanted to give a little bit of that sort of analysis so that we're actually acknowledging all of those different pieces. Because when we talk about power within, oftentimes the power that we see within ourselves or that we have the capacity to engage with is framed or shaped by the stories we might be telling ourselves based on the power that we've experienced in our lives. So I just let that rest for a minute, because our intrinsic power, the power that lives within ourselves, can be derived from our identity, from our circumstances, from our experiences. So all of that inner power, that intrinsic power, is also layered by all of these different external experiences that we've had. So exactly, from our different levels of privilege, Sasha just put in the chat, and the different levels of our identity, all of the different intersections of who we are. So I say all of that not to get stuck on it or hung up on it, but just to acknowledge it. And just as we do in any meditation, just acknowledging it, recognizing that it's there, and then being with our own selves. So what I'd like to invite us to do is to just tune into our bodies, and we'll do a tiny practice. I'll do a little guided meditation, and then we'll journal. So if you have paper and pen near you, that can be a useful tool for post-guided meditation. And just tuning into the feet on the ground, tuning back to the body. Inhaling, exhaling. And just noticing where this little conversation is living in the body. Just noticing if anything came up for you. Noticing if your hands are tight or your shoulders. Just noticing if there's any tightness in the body. And maybe not doing anything to try and correct or change or fix, but just being with the body. And then beginning to deepen the breath. Noticing where the inhale and the exhale goes. Just feeling into the body, perhaps the space around the heart. Noticing if the feeling around the heart is soft, perhaps it's a little rigid. Just noticing what the feeling is. And if you could tie your breath to a little ball, tie the little ball to the base of the spine. And on the inhale, let the ball drop down the base of the spine. And on the exhale, let it rise up to the crown of the head. Just follow the ball. Inhaling down to the base of the spine. Exhaling to the crown of the head. When we hold our power in our bodies, we want to allow for a soft space in the front, a soft space in the belly, a soft space around the heart, and a strong spine, a strong back. I like to think of the turtle's back. So just noticing as that ball moves up and down with the inhale and exhale, can you tune your energy and attention to the strong spine and the soft front? And then tuning the energy and attention to the space just below the belly button. So just below the belly button, if you want, you can put your hand there. Knowing that this is the place where courage, the will to act, oftentimes when we have a difficult decision to make, decisions are where a lot of our power lies. That if you tune into this space just below the belly button, oftentimes this space will give you just a yes or a no, a clear feeling, a clear gut reaction to the decision you're trying to make. You can do that for the small things, you can do it for the really big decisions, but just noticing how that space feels just below the belly button. Just noticing where your power is in your body. And we'll turn to our journals in just a moment. And the first question we'll go with is, what is your relationship to your own inner power? And you can either use this as a journaling, so you can turn to your journal right away, or if you'd like to stay in this visualization, meditation place, you can just think these through and visualize in your mind. What is your relationship to your own inner power? And just thinking about your own life and experiences that may have shaped you, where do you have or have you had public or visible power? And that would be more public or visible than maybe your own home. So, where do you have public or visible power? Maybe in your community, maybe if you've been in a workplace. I saw we had some teachers in here. So, where have you had or do you have public or visible power? And where do you have or where do you hold private power? So, private power is really that inside your family, perhaps in a community, uh, friendships, marriage, just noticing even the feeling that comes up when you think about those things. But where do you have or where do you hold private power? And then finally, if you were to make some sort of shift, what type of relationship to your own inner power do you want to access now? What type of relationship to your own inner power do you want to access now? Just knowing that as we shift our own access to our own inner power, that's where we experience a shift in the extrinsic, how it shows up in our expression of power. So, what type of relationship to your own inner power do you want to access now? And in just a moment, we'll turn to each other and you can share as much or as little as you want. But really, the joy of turning to each other in this Zoom space is to be able to really connect with one another and share and see what comes up for each other to be witnessed and to witness. Because as we do these explorations of power, we can kind of do this mental thing. But when we actually want to drop into a shift in that kind of access to our own inner power, it requires us to tune into that gut space, have a soft front and a strong back, and connect with each other. So that's what I encourage in this next 20 minutes of conversation. For those of you who are on YouTube, thank you for joining. And you can type directly in the chat if you, in the comments there, if you have anything that you'd like to share. And for those of us on Zoom, we're going to turn to each other. And just a reminder, many of us know this, but we don't know what the other person across from us had for breakfast today, let alone their life experiences or what this may have brought up. This topic can get quite I go down a lot of little rabbit holes, let's say. So there are lots of ways to take this, and just holding compassion for each other, holding a real compassion and softness, um, and just knowing that you can hold that soft front and strong back as we move into these conversations. So really soft, open, and vulnerable in the front, and the strong back is really knowing who we are, knowing where we're coming from. But when it comes out of our mouths, when it comes out of our experience with each other, it's with a softness, it's with empathy and compassion. So enjoy your time together. We'll have about 20 minutes, then we'll have a couple of closing comments. So enjoy your time, and I'll see you back here then.